Yeah. Thou shall not speak about.
I know, right? So we're going to talk about mental health, positive, negative, unhealthy, everything in between behaviors that is going on with the world
The
around us.
world.
So, do me a favor. I'm going to let you kick us off here, Annie. So, your observations, what are some of the things that are going on that's impacting mental health as we see it today?
Our inability to process emotions. So if we just start at the very beginning, if we don't have the ability to handle any emotions, we step away from those emotions, which means if a hard truth is put in front of us and we don't like that truth because it makes us uncomfortable and we step back, we never lean into it to grow from it. So what I'm watching is, and there have been other books. There's a book called Coddling the American Mind. There's books and authors that have touched on this of how we are creating a very fragile society. And what happens when we have a fragile society instead of a resilient society is that we can't handle hard things in life. And if we as a society can't handle hard things, it makes us easier to be manipulated. It's easier for us to be swayed because we are going to do everything we can to avoid discomfort.
I know there's that quote, right, where it's hard times. Oh, I'm gonna screw it up here, and I've retried it so much. It's hard times make strong men. Strong men make good times, and then good times make weak men, or something along those lines. I do apologize if I've butchered everyone, but it's like we're all experiencing difficulty in so many different ways. And one thing I've noticed, because you mentioned, let's say, what's going on in the political climate, you mentioned the emotions, you mentioned all these things. One thing I've noticed, it seems that there's a lot of people saying that, well, it doesn't impact me, so I don't care about it yet. But shortly, when it does impact them and they reach out for assistance, everyone's like, well, when it was impacting me, you weren't there for me, so why should I be there for you? Have you noticed that as well?
Oh, yeah. I, I want to rewind and look at the layers of belonging. And I think I may have talked about this in one of our previous podcasts. If we look at the first layer of belonging, it's belonging to ourself. And if we don't belong to ourself, if we don't have a strong identity of who we are and why we're here, that purpose driven life, we're going to seek to what our family, our household is doing, and we'll mimic and mirror what they do. And if our household is dysfunctional or fragile in any way emotionally, we're going to go to our friends. So if we look at the dynamic of like a teenager, if a teenager is feeling wonky hormonally and emotionally, and they don't have strong role models in the household, they're going to start mimicking and mirroring what their friends do. And if their friends are not healthy, then it creates a greater dysfunction. And so if the household, if the self, the household, and then the community are not supportive, the next layer is the country. It's the next, it's, from our community, the highest governing authority would be our country here in the North American countries. In Europe, it might be the European Union, but here it'd be the United States. And then beyond that is the belief system. So we have our layers of belonging. And so what I'm seeing is a country that doesn't have a sense of belonging. And when we vote in our household or we vote for what we want, it's mind, body, soul. Mind, body, soul wants the ice cream. Mind, body, soul wants the pizza. When there's something that has to do with the household, there might be a consensus among the family members, or like your friend. You might ask your friends. If we were teenagers, we might say, okay, where do we want to go to the movies? Do we want to go to the mall? Do we want to go to this place? And we would have a voting system. And so what we've lost is the understanding of how to zoom out and then zoom back in. So zoom in, I'm going to make choices for myself. I'm going to vote for myself for what immediate things, arm's reach choices. And when I'm voting in my local district, my city, I'm voting for what's in my community, the best interest in my community. When I go into my country, I'm voting for the best interest of everyone in my country. And then when I look at my belief system, when I make choices, I'm making choices for everyone in that falls under my belief system. So if my belief system says take care of our neighbors, that's that is our community, but that's also everyone. And so we've lost the sense of belonging. And because we've lost that sense of belonging, we're making choices that only affect our family, but the voting is at the country level. So we're missing it, we're missing the wholeness of it. And so it becomes us versus them. Well, I don't care what those people do. They're outside my belief system. Like if it's a heavy religious belief, it might be, oh, gays, lesbians, trans, LGBTQ, they're outside of my community. But we're not looking at it as they're inside my country of belonging. So we've lost the sense of placement. Um, People who grew up in Europe have a greater sense of belonging. And there's a lot of old cities that have a city center. So the city has like there's the center, the downtown, and we don't really have that in suburban spaces. So we don't have that born compass of center, city center, community center, country center. And so there's a distortion in how we think. And it goes back to like, well, that's not for me. I don't care what happens to them. I don't care what happens to the immigrants. I don't care what happens to these other marginalized groups. They're not me. They're not part of my family, not part of my community.
It's interesting the way you say it, the way you said it. I've always looked at it as anytime I'm going to participate in something, I say, how is this going to impact us as a group of people, human beings,
Collectively.
right? Absolutely. So I didn't look at it as, well, heterosexual man, a black man, a Christian man, a Muslim man, things like that, right? Like, yeah, those are personal interests that I may have.
Yeah.
And I say, okay, are you going to start killing us? Yeah, maybe I'm not going to vote for you, right? Or maybe I'm not going to be your friend or engage in your group. But, and I'll share a story. What I've seen has happened from an anecdotal perspective in the last couple of years is if I go back to 2018 and 2017, there was this movement to raise like there's men awareness, men's rights, things like that, right? So it was we have feminism, we have men's rights. Let's somehow get together and express some of the things that you may think women go through, men go through as well, and vice versa. We can fight it together. And then some of my friends, or former friends now, they're very pro that. Let's raise awareness for both sides.
Sure.
And then what happened is that they began to blame women for their problems. A couple of years later now, we see um, people going through based on cultural differences and cultural backgrounds, right? So now these same men, they went from blaming women for their problems to now they're blaming people that are a different skin color.
Yep.
And what's interesting is that they're not white. Right? People are like, oh, you know what? That's white people don't know. These are people that are they're minority groups themselves, right?
Yep.
So now what they've done is that every time they have an issue, it's either a woman's fault of
Mm-hmm.
all skin colors,
Yep.
or it's a man's fault for the skin colors other than white or black. And it's sad to see because what I've noticed, and I'll get your input on this with a question, some people have become so influenced by
Yep.
this.
Yep.
The way we see them is totally different, but when they look in the mirror, they still think they're the same person. So, my question to you then is the people who are on the outside seeing the changes in these people who may at one point be close to them, it could have been a partner, a family member, or even a friend. How do they now navigate their life when it comes to seeing these people change before their eyes, but the person changing is so oblivious to it?
I think that's a great question, and it's one I struggle with too. I when I served in the military, I took an oath to defend my country, not my nationality, not my race. It was my country, which meant everything that fell under the umbrella of my country. So I I've struggled with it too of having these really close friends that are showing me signs of xenophobia that I didn't know was there. And it's quite shocking that I thought they were very um, compassionate to all members of our country. And I'm finding, but what I've had to learn to do is separate it because I'm also looking at it from a neuroscience side. So we've got the I've got the personal, like my emotions, it's me intimately as a human, but then also me academically looking at it from a very zoomed out research perspective of how easily it is for society to be swayed and manipulated to create division and polarization. How smoothly it has been throughout and it's not just recent political, this is historically an American way of having these divisions. Because if we stop dividing, it means we have to face our own shit, and we don't want to do that. So instead of me saying I've got the issue, it's my shame being projected and deflected, and I'm gaslighting others because I don't want to deal with my stuff. I have to create an enemy in the story, and sometimes the enemy is arbitrary. Like once upon a time, we the Americans hated the Irish, and we've always had the Iranians, the Arabs, and 9/11 hit, and it was my people, the Arabs that were the focus. We've always had some enemy because we don't want to face our own